What is up, New Beginnings Church? Happy Monday morning to you, and welcome to our devotional series. We're still in that walk through the book of Ephesians. This week we dive into Ephesians chapter 3, and I was thinking about it. We're about halfway through Ephesians, and then after that we have the book of Philemon as we wrap up kind of a walk through all the different prison epistles. After that, I'm probably taking a break from books of the Bible and just going to dive into some just random encouraging scriptures. I don't know. I'll just let the Lord speak to me when we get there. But so far in Ephesians chapter 3, so I'd encourage you, pause, go read Ephesians chapter 3, come back to me. It's cool because I noticed something I'd never noticed before. I was reading Ephesians chapter 3, and the first about, 6 verses or so is a recap of what he's already said, mostly in chapter 2 and some in chapter 1. And I thought it was interesting because I feel like the Apostle Paul was writing through chapter 2, and he was like, I'm tired. I'm gonna go to sleep for the night. And then I feel like the next morning he woke up fresh and ready to start again. And so he does like a little bit of a recap. It almost seems like he took a pause between chapter 2 and chapter 3. And so he recaps the first few verses. And the only thing I want to point out in those first few verses is something that's referred to as the stewardship of God's grace. Again, he recaps the idea that the Gentiles used to be on the outside looking in, but now because of Jesus, we're all in, Jew and Gentile. And he calls this a mystery. But he refers to it as the stewardship of grace. And then he refers later and he says this, he talks about how I became a servant of this gospel by the gift of God's grace. And then verse 8, this is where we're really going to land today. Although I am less than the least of all the Lord's people, this grace was given to me. And so again, for those of you that think I lean too much into the grace of God, I think Paul just said grace 3 times in a handful of verses, and that doesn't include what we covered last week. And so anyway, this idea of like you're stewarding grace. Grace is given to you, and now you're in charge of managing grace. A beautiful idea. And of course, Paul was saying, I'm managing and stewarding this grace given to the Gentiles. But I want you to pay close attention to this one single verse here. It's very powerful. He said, although I am less than the least of all the Lord's people, this grace was given to me. He refers to himself as the least of all God's people. I think for him, he probably carried a little bit of guilt and shame over what he had done towards Christians before he converted to Christ. Before he had that Damascus Road experience. I think if you don't know, he was imprisoning Christians. He was there at the death of Stephen. He certainly was encouraging hatred towards Christians and their imprisonment. And so I think he carries a certain amount of guilt. But I want you to notice something, though. I actually think maybe deeper than that, he's on a journey in humility. A journey in humility. And I'll tell you why. If you look at the writings of Paul, if you go back to the book of Corinthians, which is one of his early writings, which is estimated to be around 56 AD, he refers to himself as the least of the apostles. The least of the apostles. Now, we fast forward about 4 or 5 years, he's writing to the church of Ephesus, and he says, actually, I'm just the least of the Lord's people. I mean, let alone the apostles. Are you kidding me? He's like, but early on, it's like, hey, I'm kind of a big deal, but these guys were before me. I'm not ahead of them. I'm the least of the apostles. You journey in humility, and all of a sudden you're like, I don't even know that I'm that great just amongst God's people as a whole. I mean, I don't know. He's becoming more humble. Watch this. By the time you get about 4 or 5 years into the future, one of his last writings is that he's writing to Timothy, one of what we call the pastoral epistles. And while he's teaching and encouraging Timothy in how to be a young pastor, he refers to himself as this: I'm the worst of all sinners. I love it. I feel the same way. I'm nowhere near where the Apostle Paul is yet, but I feel like when you start out young in life and you're in your 20s and you're full of zeal and just a ton of excitement for the Lord, you can get pretty amped up. And I think even in that moment, he's still being humble. I'm the least of the apostles. But you journey forward and you're like, whew, I think I might be overrated. I don't even know that I deserve to be a pastor. I don't even know that I really deserve to be anything special. And I'm just the least of God's people. As long as I'm in on God's people, I mean, I'll stay at the bottom of that. And then you get to the end, you're like, y'all, I'm terrible. I'm a wreck. I'm a train wreck. I am the worst of all sinners. And I don't think his life was getting progressively less holy. I don't think that. I think as you journey through life, you're hopefully growing in 2 big things. Number 1 is humility. And humility, again, is not thinking less of myself. It's just thinking of myself less, if that makes sense. And so I don't even want to consider myself. I just don't even want to think about myself, and I just don't even think about myself and I worry about it. And so he's growing in humility. But the other thing I think he's doing too is I think he's growing in empathy as well. He's recognizing that when you're young in the Lord, it's easy to make quick judgments about what other people have done or not done or fallen into, or errors they've made, or weaknesses that they have, or addictions that they have, and be like, well, you ought to be better, and you ought to be stronger, and you ought to be, and just, it's real easy, I think, to do that. And so I think when you grow in humility and think of yourself less, I think you have the potential to grow in compassion for other people, to grow in empathy for other people, and in doing so, you really end up just saying, hey, look, I'm not sitting in the seat of judgment on anybody. Let me, since I'm stewarding grace, let me extend grace. And that only comes when I think very less of myself in terms of like how much I think about myself. Let me increase in wisdom. Let me increase in compassion, and let me decrease the amount of time and focus and attention I put on myself. I certainly don't want to think too highly of myself. That seems like that could be a disaster too. And so Christ followers out there, I want to encourage you, let us be on a journey of humility, putting Christ first in our life, and then even elevating others above ourselves. Can I get an amen to that? Church, I love you so much. God bless you. Have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.